What is up, everybody? It's Sunday, July 6th, and we're coming live with another Sunday watch list here before the trading week gets kicked off this week. Let's get right into the charts. I hope everybody had a really good weekend. Hope you got to spend some time with the family, maybe with some friends. Maybe you just laid low and just got some rest and relaxation, man. That's what it's all about because whenever you come back to the markets, you just want to make sure that you're fresh, whatever that means for you, whatever it takes to get away, clear your head, and come back refreshed. It's so key because you really have to be firing on all cylinders from a mental perspective, to consistently do well in this. The mentality, the being fresh, not being burnt out, you know, that's what we're looking for here, not just from a mindset perspective, but also from the perspective of our account, from our capital, right? Whenever we see these times where, the market's not really moving, when stocks aren't really, just making a beeline straight up, we don't want to be burning our capital in these times where it's choppy and when we get these downtrends. People are burning their capital and then they're not fresh and they don't have enough capital to take advantage of moves like we've seen these last couple weeks. So that's what we've got to do, guys, is we've got to stay fresh. We've got to keep a clear head on our shoulders and look at these from an objective perspective. Now let's look at SPY. We'll start here with SPY, like always. And you'll see here, we closed on, short week last week. Thursday was the last day of the trading week, and it was only like a half day. The market closed 2 hours early. So all the volume that we pay attention today, we have to keep in the back of our minds that this was on a short trading day. We could even put more emphasis on a high volume day if it came on a day like Thursday. SPY made a good move on Thursday. It gapped up and it put in a strong candle. And again, all-time high, 625. We've practically gone straight up, just straight vertical from 590 to 625. We got to expect to see this thing consolidate a little bit. Expect to see this thing kind of pull back. And now we've got something to form a little base off of. We've got major strength. Let's see if we can get that pullback. We can get some sideways contraction here and let some buyers step in underneath. QQQ. Similar type candle on Thursday. Gap and, closed higher than it opened. Not a whole lot of volume in the Qs on Thursday, but nevertheless, fresh all-time highs on both the indexes. Bitcoin, I drew this channel here. We've been keeping an eye on this channel here in the last couple weeks of trading or so. We said anything within this channel is very healthy. That's a very healthy contraction phase right there. It looks like we pushed up above it, and now we're kind of testing the upside of this channel. So Bitcoin looks really good here. It looks like 110,000 is a key level. And it looks like we'll try to gain some strength into this to hit this thing on all-time highs as well. So Bitcoin looks pretty good going into it. Getting into the individual names here. I try to start these for you guys from high caps, larger caps, and I try to work my way down into the smaller caps so you can kind of get an idea as to the just the overall float and how many people are taking part in this game. SMCI, a large cap, a computer hardware technology type of company here. We've had this one on watch for quite a while. I like the overall shape here, starting to shape up since the beginning of this year, really since the end of last year, after that massive pullback in October. Just massive from 45 down to, $10 here on SMCI. You got to think this thing got loaded off of $10. Some people came in and loaded this thing down here, as much as oversold as it was, and boom, it just straight springed up to 40, and then a lighter consolidation the next time, down to 25. More buyers stepped in. We went higher. We put in a higher high. That's just, a beautiful sign of a trend reversal right here. And then we came back again, consolidated sideways, put in higher lows. Higher lows, very important to start to see a trend start to shape up and change here for the better. And that's what we're getting on SMCI. Now we've got the tightest range that we've seen during this whole period. We broke out of it, and we've got a little sideways here to complement it. I'm looking for dips to 45, constructive dips, testing this green line right here. Testing this, this is what we call our EMA, our exponential moving average. Anything constructive dipping down to the EMA, I expect to see buyers. I expect to see a lot of demand stepping in underneath around that 45, around that green line. And that's where I'll look to gain some footing, gain a position in this. Moving on to Soundhound. Bear with me here. The computer's it's just been sort of slow today, but we're going to make it work. Soundhound, fresh break on Thursday. Great volume on a short day. That's a great sign. Just a healthy candle both Thursday and Tuesday on Soundhound. Like I said, we got that dip on Wednesday, and it got bought up pretty hard. Like I said on Soundhound, we're looking to get up here 12, 13. That's our target on the swing on Soundhound. It's off to a really good start here. More contraction would be healthy. A pullback to wherever the top of those wicks are. If you guys can see that here. Let's blow this chart up. Okay, so still, 1050. I think that's our line in the sand from the past. Anything constructive, sideways moving, pulling back to that 1050, that's what I'd like to see here on Soundhound going forward. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for there on Soundhound before we get even more, buyers stepping underneath here, buying those dips up. Get something constructive, stair stepping back up to 13. This looks good. This looks really good. Soundhound does. I'd still keep my risk around, $10 on something like Soundhound, maybe $9.50. Now, this is a new one to the watch list here. This is a trade that, my system takes these trades. Like Futu here. FUTU, this is a Chinese, it's a technology software. It's kind of like a trading investment firm for the Chinese markets, believe it or not. But Futu, Chinese company, nothing in the way of Chinese companies was really looking very good out there. But this one continues to pop up on my scans because of this ascending triangle here working its way up to a key level. This key level up here at 130 is a level that we haven't broken in years. You see, we've tested it now 3 times in the last 2 years. Here's a test. Here's a test. Here's a test, the most recent, of course. But this most recent test has been followed by, it looks like just a week of not a thing happening. Just a week of sideways. Consolidation, small candles. No, not like here, where we met this resistance with major pullback. Met this resistance with strong pullback, strong buying, strong selling, that is. This one, we've tested it in a different way here, and I take note of that. We've started to kind of dive now, kind of consolidate into this EMA. Kind of like I'm looking on SMCI. But my system takes these trades because I can go back here 5 years on the chart and kind of show you guys how long it's been since we had a fresh break of these levels. You have to go clear back to 2021, to early 2021 into mid 2021 to see anything trading above this level. And then, of course, the highs before that, we've got 180 to target. We've got, 145 as our kind of our first benchmark line in the sand. Just for years now, we've just been kind of steady here, trending up. And we've reached this level of, right now it's supply, 130. It's resistance as of now, but I like the way that we tested it and just had a weak little pullback here, just some sideways into this green EMA. Like I said, my system takes these trades. I will keep a little bit of a wider risk on something like Futsu, with not a large position, because this is something that I'm looking for a couple weeks of movement here. If we're going to get up to 140, 145, if we're going to test 150, I'll risk about 6 points of downside. So I'll risk the 115, but give my options contracts a couple weeks and see if this starts to get some momentum here towards this 130. Interesting shape on Futsu right there. Needs volume. We're going to need some form of catalyst, something to propel this and get some more buying, get some more interest and shares traded in this thing. Because right now volume's lacking just a little bit, but the shape is certainly noteworthy. The way we're ascending in this triangle. Guys, triangles they give you you can kind of come up with a measurable move when you draw a triangle. All that these patterns are supposed to do is foreshadow something, right? Give us something to measure. I know that when I get a strong run like this, that was a strong run in the stock from a 70 to 105, 25-point move, 35-point move in Futsu. You don't trade that, okay? Now, since that 35-point move, we've got a triangle. We've got consolidation. Typically, out of a triangle, you can anticipate a move similar to the prior move when it breaks out, okay? Meaning we got a 30-point move up here into the triangle. We've consolidated sideways. It's realistic to kind of, trade around or place your winners around a 30-point potential move. With that being said, you have to respect your risk. You have to understand where your risk to reward is. And that's why I'll cut this thing at 115. I'll risk about 5 or 6 points here to potentially gain 20 or 30. That's why my system takes these trades. So Futsu is clearly on watch here. It's a good looking chart. Just needs some more volume, needs some more shares traded. RGTI took most of the profit off the table here. We kept a couple runners on this, but just a great move. Broke out of that consolidation, fresh, recent highs, and the volume wasn't impressive. Volume wasn't astronomical here, but we got what we needed out of RGTI. We'll keep some runners for this week. We'll look for some more consolidation back to that 1130, 1150 range to potentially go at it again. But RGTI got what we wanted out of this. Good look. Now we just kind of let our winners run on this. See if we can't get a 15, 14 out of this week. RGTI, good trade. Good looking chart. SLDP still in play. Still you've got to think this is a key name out there right now in the markets due to the volume, due to the shape, the short interest in this name. We've kind of got what we wanted to out of this cup formation. We're almost to that 270, which is where the top of the cup really would form out. But now we're looking for that handle. We're looking for some retracement within that last day. Really within that last week of trading last week. Something. Oops, hold on, guys. Yeah, anything in this range right here. That would be a beautiful looking handle. Start to see that volume kind of consolidate a little bit. And before we go for that fresh break in SLDP, keep your risk in mind. For me, it's a wider risk. I've been in this thing since sub twos. So my risk is kind of wide, but I'm looking to get more into this position because of the looks of it here. If it continues going sort of, parabolic, it could, and I'm in it. I won't get left behind. But, that wouldn't be situation A. That wouldn't be the A+ setup in something like SLDP. Some sideways would be very, very healthy in this name right now. And I don't know if we'll get it, but, that's what I'm basing my thesis on, is some sideways. AISP, it's just kind of stuck here. It's just kind of stuck. And the reason I say that, when you look at these candles up here, there's a lot of wicks. Even these candles here. And, there's a good amount of wicks up in that $6 area. I don't think this has completely made its mind up yet. I think this one is kind of stuck in limbo here on this trend line breakout. Needs some strong volume. It needs a strong candle here to the upside with not much wicks on the upside. But still, I'm looking for a position here in AISP. I'm looking for sideways in this 525, 530 range. That's where I'd like to get some footing in this. Kind of buy into these lower ends of these red end candles, okay? I like the risk to reward in AISP. We get some volume stepping in. It still has that good shape. Just waiting for that risk to reward to really refine itself. $5, $5.25, $5.30. Start putting in some higher lows. I really like AISP going forward this week. Okay, and if you remember, this was sort of the makeup of our watch list last week, minus Futsu being the new one. That's still the main watch list going forward, is everything we've just highlighted. Have a plan for it. If you're going to trade it, keep your risk in mind. Know what you're looking for out of the trade. and know where you're willing to cut this thing. Know where your risk is underneath. These next two are kind of bonus. They're, not solidified into my watch list, but they're definitely in my peripherals as something that, I just have to note these. These are something we have to talk about. Is something like QS, QuantumScape. QS with all-time volume bars last week on that gap up and go from 4 up to almost 8, almost 100% move in the course of just a few days. And, it was confirmed with incredible volume, all-time volume. Guys, when I go back on this chart, 3 years, there's just nothing, there's just nothing in the ball game with those volume bars that we got on QS. Massive volume, a stock that's been beat up for 5 years, guys. 5 years this stock has been beat to shit. Just beat up. Every single pop has been sold. Every single pop has been sold off. This one just feels a little different. This volume is insane. And the day after, both of those days were all-time days with volume. So it's nothing to jump into yet, but this is going to have a lot of interest this week from people as QS. So keep that in the, not to confuse you guys, not to get you overwhelmed with anything. Just you have to note when you see something like QS with that type of volume and that type of break. Just keep it in mind. It's one to keep an eye on. The short float on QS is pretty impressive as well. I believe it's between 15 and 20% short float on it. So a lot of shorts this is a big week for them. They're going to get crushed if this thing, breaks over that recent high. $8. They're crushed, guys. They're going to have to unload. Another one to keep an eye on is SPCE. This is Virgin Galactic Holdings. Space. A lot of speculation in the space industry, the aerospace stocks recently. I know there's been some conflict between Elon and Trump, it's been a catalyst for a lot of competitors of Tesla. Space saw the benefit of that. It's been about a month now, middle of May, that this thing ran up. But it's got sold off again. It's consolidated. It's kind of got beat up. Space has to be noteworthy. My short float scans picked this one up. 30% short float on SPCE. Shoo. That's pretty damn aggressive, guys. A third of the shares on this thing are being shorted right now. With the talk that's been going on in the aerospace industry, with the moves that we've seen in some of the competitors here, and space is one of those stocks that it gets news. It gets catalysts. I think they're looking at building a plant in Italy within 2026. That news is supposed to come out here end of the year sometime, if it's official or not. Space is one of those retail names that people can get involved in. I'm looking for the higher low off this 225. I think it's going to draw a lot of interest in something like SPCE, but also the 30% short float. My goodness. Just insane. I think this little pullback here, to me, this is somewhat constructive. This is somewhat constructive for a pullback with the wicks here as we proceed lower. So again, no position yet, total speculation. Just keeping it in the peripherals because it's 30% short float on a name like SPCE with a sector it's hot. Okay? All right, so that's it, guys. All I got for Sunday. Like I said, everybody come into this stuff fresh. If you're not fresh, don't be afraid to just get away from the markets. Take a day off. It's just so key to come into these with a fresh perspective and with a mindset ready to capitalize on opportunity. Because when you're not fresh, you look for things that aren't there. You maybe test your system a little bit, and it's easy to get greedy. It just is. It's easy to get greedy. It's easy to get frustrated. And believe me, your P&L will show it. But likewise, when you're in a good mindset, when you're fresh, when you're looking at these things in the right way, you'll see consistent results. You'll make trades that you should be making. And that's what we're looking for, guys. Always respect your risk, but I'm going to sign off on this. Let's have a great week. If you have any questions, just shoot me a message in the Discord, and I'll set up a Q&A here and go over anything you guys might be interested in. But that's it. Good luck. Let's stay profitable out there with trading, everybody.